So today we've got a really kind of a packed show. We're going to be talking about the new Authentisign. We're going to be talking about why we actually decided to stay with TransactionDesk. And we're going to be talking about the parent company and their overall goal. We're also going to be talking about the product integration that you're going to be seeing. So there are some really exciting things that are coming together. I know that we have some people that are attending this and they're from either dual members with another MLS or their MLS may have chose not to continue with TransactionDesk. So the good news is we are staying with TransactionDesk. We think it's a great product. And we also, our members really don't want to learn something brand new. They want to use what they know and love already. And so that's why we decided to actually stay with TransactionDesk. And thank you, Patricia. We like TransactionDesk too. I will tell you that when we find a product, we try to find companies that have longevity, meaning that we would rather have updates to those products than making you learn a brand new product, especially coming out of a pandemic, right? And as an agent myself of 22 years, I'm getting back to work and I'm selling properties and I don't want to have to learn brand new technology. I know an MLS in this area has announced that they're going to a completely new forms platform. They're going over to a new MLS platform. And now this week, they're announcing they're going to a new way that you have to input your listings. And so obviously, our members just want to use the tools that they know and love. And so that's why we actually opted to stay with Lone Wolf's TransactionDesk. So we're going to get started. And I apologize, my co-host is running a few minutes behind, but we're going to actually get started. We're going to show you some of the new improvements that Authentisign 2.0 is going to offer you. Authentisign 2.0 is now 60% faster, and they are now using high resolution documents. And what that means is if you actually are receiving an offer, before, if you scanned in that offer and you brought it in, sometimes it could be a little bit grainy. They've gotten rid of that. They've gone to a high resolution document. They've also gotten rid of that wizard where you had to go in and open each panel or expand each panel to be able to fill that information out. It's now on one convenient dashboard, which I like because I don't want to have to keep clicking to actually get to the next step. They've also enhanced many of the tools for countering. So the strikeout tool, the free range tool. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. And going to kind of walk you through some of the new enhancements. If you have any questions today, by the way, feel free to put your questions right into the chat and we'll go ahead and address them. And then we can go from there. All right, so let's kind of talk about where TransactionDesk started. And then let's talk about where their overall goal is. Because I know that's what everybody's wondering is, why are some MLSs leaving? And it really has to do with the fact that they have purchased many acquisitions in this last year. Their idea is to have one complete transaction management from lead to close. And they now can even offer all their back-end tools that will be actually plugged in. They're going to have great integration with LionDesk. They're going to have great integrations now with PropertyBase, which I know many of our members are using. So let's actually start where they started and where they're going. So in 1989, they actually started a broker back end. So many of our brokers sort of struggle with the different splits that they have with different agents. And they wanted something to sort of streamline the back end to pay their agents. And so they started something called Broker Wolf. And Broker Wolf was basically where you could put different splits in for agents. It would pull information over into like QuickBooks and your accounting software, making it easier for that accounting on the brokerage side, since everybody, can have a different split. Sometimes you have different franchise fees. So they kind of really designed that concept for brokers to make it a little bit easier. Then they thought, well, since we have this great linking, wouldn't it be great if we could actually pull from a transaction that was started and then pull it into that back office accounting. So all the splits are there. It knows what the agents should be paid. And then it would work with things like QuickBooks and your back office systems. Well, then in 2016, they decided, you know what, we're going to make this even bigger. We're going to actually go into full on transaction management because there really wasn't a lot of forms companies or transaction management companies at that time. There was ZipForm, RealFast, TrueForms. There was just a handful of them, but none of them really had the vision that Lone Wolf had to be able to start with a lead and then walk it all the way through the full transaction management process and then pay the agent on the end. So that was kind of something they wanted to expand on. Then they started looking at, well, how do we bring more users in and give them more tools? Then in 2019, they actually purchased ZipLogix, which is the maker of ZipForm, which I actually ran their sales team for 7 or 8 years. It's a great company. And then so they brought ZipForm and their transaction management under the umbrella. Then Stone Point Capital actually purchased Lone Wolf and started then diversifying a little bit of what was going to, who was going to make what. And actually what it did is it gave them more capital to go out and buy programs like W&R Studios. You may know W&R Studios as the maker of Cloud CMA. So just in this last, I would say in the last year, they purchased W&R Studios, they purchased Property Base, they purchased HomeSpotter, Terradatum, which you may know as Broker Metrics. They also purchased LionDesk. And the idea now for them is to plug all these and fully integrate them into one system that a broker can use literally from the lead side right into paying their agents. And so I think that's really the overall goal. Now, these, I would say, HomeSpotter, Terradatum, LionDesk, these all happened within just the last few months. And I think what we're seeing is their acquisitions are higher than they've ever been. And I think it's because we're looking at systems like Zillow and these others who are trying to do sort of a soup to nuts kind of program on their own. And I think the idea is we want to give that control back to the agents and the brokers and make it so that it all is seamless and it's not going here for one system and trying to go into another system and load the same information. So I think that's what you're going to really be seeing from Lone Wolf. So again, here is kind of their vision board, and they were kind enough to share this with me right from the digital marketing. When we say digital marketing, we're looking at things like LionDesk, HomeSpotter, more of the lead generation pieces, and there's more to come on that from us as well. But bringing in that lead, now taking it into a CRM platform, doing a CMA right from that CMA or from the CRM platform, filling out your forms with one click, pushing it over into e-signatures, managing the transaction from beginning to end, pushing that information out so that you can also advertise your listings, then allowing that broker to use that broker wolf or that link so that he can even pay his agents. So they really are designing a soup to nuts tool so that you don't have to keep piecemealing one system over here and another system over here. They're really bringing it all together for the first time. So I'm very excited about it. Have a lot of friends within that company, and I really see it going fantastic places. So while other MLSs have chose to not continue with TransactionDesk, we really feel that this is a company that is growing moving forward and giving the brokers and agents the true advantage that we need in our industry. So ZipForm, on the other side, they had something called ZipLogix Digital Inc. It was kind of more of a token based. You could buy a certain number of envelopes. It wasn't quite as convenient as Authentisign is. Authentisign, because the system is so good, and now with these enhancements, they're actually plugging Authentisign into ZipForm. So you're going to see not only TransactionDesk users using Authentisign, but you're going to see that carry over to agents who are using ZipForm as well. So the enhancements that they added in this 2.0, here's kind of the enhancements in a nutshell, if you will. They added where you now can change the signing name while it's in progress. So what that means is, and I did this not that long ago, I'm embarrassed to say, let's say you're sending your envelopes out to Joe Schmagegi. You spell Joe Schmagegi's name incorrectly. It used to be you'd have to go back into the Authentisign program. You would have to cancel that envelope. You'd have to then copy it. You then have to fix the name, and then you would have to send it out. Well, now you can actually edit those signing names in real time, meaning that you can go in, you can make that correction, you can save it. And now when they open it up, they haven't missed a beat. Their name is correct, their signature is correct, and you can do all of that in real time. The other thing is, before, I noticed when I would send it out to clients, if they were signing particularly on their phones, it was hard to find that final completion button. So basically they could go ahead, they could sign it on their phone, but many times if they had their phone kind of blown up, that complete button sometimes fell just a little bit off of their screen, and it was very hard for them to click it, or sometimes they didn't see it at all, and then the document wasn't complete. Another thing that they added was, again, a better UI where all of the tools are on one convenient dashboard so you can pull in what you need. And then one of my favorite features is the feedback. So if a client chose to not sign it, they could just reject it before, but you'd have to pick up the phone and you'd have to say, why didn't you sign the documents? Or if it was an attorney using the reviewer role, and I'm going to show you all of this today too, if it was an attorney using the reviewer role, and they rejected the document, so it didn't go on to their, onto their client for signing, you would have to pick up the phone again and ask the attorney, why did you choose to reject this document? It would show that he rejected it, but there was no way for them to provide feedback to explain it. So I'm happy to say that now, if someone chooses not to sign it, or an attorney does reject it while it's in process, they can actually leave a feedback telling you, hey, the closing date was wrong, or my name is spelled incorrectly, or, please give me a call. Whatever it happens to be, they can leave that feedback for you. As I mentioned, using the high resolution documents, when you are pulling in those offers to, let's say, counter them, you're going to find that the documents are now crisper and clearer. And as you can see, overall, the UI, the user interface itself, has really been cleaned up and very streamlined. So the features themselves, as far as the tagging, pretty similar. You're going to drag and drop them on, but they've given you some additional tags, like you can auto add the email address. You can use the radio buttons a little easier. I personally find that the tools seem to work a little bit better, especially like the freehand or the strikeout. Before, they could be a little temperamental. And I think that you'll find that overall they're much, much better and easier to use because, again, the documents being high resolution, they're going to be larger. You're going to be able to scroll through them a little bit easier, and they're not so grainy. So obviously that helps when you're using the tools too. Of course, in 2.0, it doesn't matter whether they're signing on an iPad, whether they're signing on a phone, a laptop, or a traditional computer. It's going to open to that screen size. So no matter what they're signing on, it's going to allow them to have that same easy experience when they're signing. Before, you could obviously go in and generate a signature. You could, type it out. You can actually do it with your mouse. You could do it on your phone. Of course, now you can not only draw it, you can auto-generate the signature, but if they have a signature created, some people are kind of funny about their signature. If they do have a digital signature that they've already created, they can simply upload that as well. And I think the biggest thing for my clients is it's really much easier for them to utilize on their phone. Again, it's clearer, which helps, but it actually expands to the full screen of their phone. It's not minimized like it was before. So I think that your clients will even find it easier to sign right on their phones. Lastly, as I mentioned, I think the big feature that everyone's really excited about is that you don't have to pick up the phone and call. As you can see right from this screen, you're going to be able to tell them why you're rejecting the document. You're going to be able to go in and give a reason. And then immediately that comes back to you as the agent. And then you can go in and make that correction very easily. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing my screen for just a moment, and I'm going to jump over into the live version. So I'm going to actually take you through the new Authentisign process. And I'm going to show you a couple things on the transaction desk side too. So I'm going to walk you through really the differences that you're going to need to know. There are a couple hidden secrets. And I gave some feedback. I'd like to see those maybe expanded on a little bit, like when you're trying to rotate documents or you're trying to use the document slicer. All right, so let's jump over into what we're here for. And that's to learn a couple time-saving tips in the transaction desk side, and as well as looking at the new Authentisign 2.0. So the first thing is, if you are new to using Transaction Desk, and I know we've got quite a few people on this call that were either dual members or are now coming over from another MLS, really, everything that you had in your other MLS, as far as your transaction desk files, can be moved right over in so that you can access Transaction Desk through Paragon. Now, it's the same exact program. It's still Transaction Desk. But previously, if you were with another MLS, there was kind of a wall. So if you created a file coming through MiRealSource, you could only see your Transaction Desk file that you created through us. If you were with another MLS and you were logging in through their single sign-on, you could only see those transaction files. Well, because that other MLS has decided no longer to carry Transaction Desk, we're happy to bring those files over for you so that you don't lose any of your information. So we simply take down the wall, they move them over, and now when you come in through Paragon, you can see, access, and use all of those transaction files. The big difference here is basically how do you start your transaction. So if you are on the buy side, you're always going to start your transaction desk file right from this blue splash icon. And it'll say start transaction. It's going to pull over 90% of everything you need right into your transaction desk file. So it's going to fill out things like the lengthy legal description, who listed the property, the brokerage information, the broker ID. All of that's going to carry over because it's already right there. But obviously, if you're on the listing side for flipping this around, we want to make sure that we're not just trusting what another agent put into the MLS, right? On the flip side, what we want to make sure we're doing when we're adding in a new listing is we want to pull from the tax records, because obviously that's going to have the square footage coming from the municipality, or I'm sorry, the property address coming from the municipality. It's going to bring in things like your lengthy legal description. It's going to bring in all the property-based information so that it's now filling it directly from a trusted source. So if you're new to Transaction Desk, you're going to be going into resources, and you're simply going to go to Transaction Desk over here. If you're looking to just sign documents quickly, of course, you can go directly into Authentisign as well. But if we're looking to start a listing, we really want to start on that Transaction Desk side, because again, we want to pull all that information from the actual municipality record. Okay, so I'm going to just jump down to my transactions here. And then we're going to get into the other side, which is obviously the Authentisign side. And I'm going to go ahead and select add. And I want to give, obviously, my listing a name. So we're going to call this 41539 Wessel. And again, if you wanted to put a client name in here too, don't be afraid to add that after. I don't like to just put a client name in, because if I do that and he buys more than one home, it can be very hard to find in my big long list of transactions. I've got like 5 Bob Smiths. So if that's the case, just go ahead and add it after the transaction name. The biggest thing is the templates. If you are a broker, and I see a lot of great brokers on our call, Bob Keene and many other brokerage names that I recognize, you want to make sure you've got your packets or your forms set up. So for instance, if I'm taking a listing, I want to simply go to my company listing packet, and I want to apply all of those listing forms. So agents know what's required, 1. 2, they're not picking or pulling wrong forms. And for convenience, it's just like if they actually grab their listing packet right out of the drawer. So that's really the whole idea. So I'm going to say I want to go in, I want to grab my listing packet, and I, of course, want to import the data. Now, if I was pulling from the MLS, that would be great. but really I want to make my listing entry much easier. That's kind of where we're going to start with. So I'm going to actually pull from Realist because I want to fill all that information in from that trusted source. So I'm going to say Realist, but now here's the trick. So when Brian was setting this up, and Brian, who I just adore, he's our technology officer here. He can write code. I mean, he's absolutely brilliant, but he's never sold a house in his life. So when he was showing me this, he said, well, great, you just pull from Realist and you plug in the tax ID. And I had to stop him. And I said, but agents don't memorize tax IDs. We know addresses, right? And he's like, oh, so there's one more step you want to follow, but you kind of want to, make a mental note of this. Kind of works like Google. So the less you put in, the better off your search result is going to be. So what you want to do is you want to select Realist, but then you want to go over to this magnifying glass over here to the right. Now, I just want to fill out 3 fields of information. I want to pick the county. So I'm going to say, okay, I am going to pick Macomb County because that happens to be where this particular listing is. I want to put in the street number and just the route street name. So this happens to be Wessel Drive, but leave off the drives, the ways, the places, because I promise you, if you put that additional information in, it will usually error out. And here's why. Tax records are very, very exact. So if you type out the word Wessel and you type out drive, but the tax municipality has it DR period, it's not going to pull the information. So what you're going to do is just put in the base name of the street. So in this case, I'm putting in my county, my street number, and just my route street name. Then you're going to hit search tax data. Immediately, it's going to pull up that tax record. I'm now selecting that, yep, that's the tax record I want to use. I'm pulling all of that data in. And because I've selected to use my listing package, it even knows I'm the listing agent. So I've already started creating this file, and I'm even able to pull in the sellers of record. By doing this way, it will actually pull in the seller's names and pre-tag all of the forms where the seller should sign. So by simply doing that one step of pulling from the tax records, you can see how much auto population is already falling into my forms. So the tax number, lengthy legal description, zip code, subdivision, school district, year bill, all of that's now carrying over. The next step, and I'm going to jump over to step 3 here, is really the contacts. So as you can see on this step, the seller has already been brought in for me, and it's labeled its seller. So as we go forward, all of my tags in Authentisign 2.0 are going to know exactly where the seller should sign on my listing documents. So all of that, again, is being carried over to simplify the signing process as well. The next step that I want to show you is forms. And I'm going to be honest, the one thing that sort of puzzled me when I started using TransactionDesk was forms and documents, okay? Because it seemed like a form is a document is a form, at least when I got my license. But the difference in TransactionDesk is a form is basically anything that TransactionDesk has set up for you to fill out. So it's got the blanks, you just fill in the blanks, those forms are set and ready for you to fill out. Documents, which you can see is the next step, documents are actually things that you're bringing in that are outside of what's already there for you. The good examples of documents would be a copy of an EMD. Maybe you've got a home warranty form that's filled out that you want to pull in. Maybe you've got signed seller's disclosure statements, things of that nature. Those would be examples of documents. So it's kind of in a nutshell, the forms or anything you're filling in that's already there for you. Documents would be something that you're bringing from outside. But here's kind of some of the cool things that they've done recently. Of course, you can drag and drop forms into the order that you want your clients to receive them. But there's a few enhancements that we've added here that I think make this listing entry easier and more important than ever. So for me, I would generally fill out a data sheet. A lot of times I would turn it into my front desk. My front desk then would pick up the data sheet, have to re-enter those 200 fields of information, and now to create the listing. So keep in mind, one of the newer enhancements that we added is if you're using the MiRealSource data sheet, you can actually take the information directly from the data sheet and create your listing within the MLS. So the idea is we want to make it easier for you to just fill out a document and have your listing in the MLS without having to re-enter anything. Now, if your admins are in charge of putting the listings in, or maybe you have a policy that the admins have to check them before going live, they can still do that, but they don't have to rekey in all the information from the data sheet. It can actually be pulled right from there. Case in point, I turned my vacant land package to my admin. It was $47,000. It was nothing super fancy. It was just a vacant piece of land for $47,000. The admin was, of course, answering the phone, doing and admins. I was an admin at one time, and it's a lot of work. And they're multitasking like crazy, taking care of all of the agents. So unfortunately, that same piece of land went in at $470,000. Kind of a big mistake, right? So the idea is, instead of asking them to rekey all that information can come directly from your data sheet. So how it works is, obviously you need to fill in anything that's going to be required. So I would fill, is it a sale? Is it a lease? What's the price? But there is a button right up here at the top that says upload listing. When you upload that listing, basically what it's doing is it's taking all the information from your data sheet and it's loading it into a partial. Now, so I would click upload listing. It's going to take all the data. I'm going to go over to Paragon, and I'm going to go into my listings here, and I'm going to go to partials. And of course, if you are an office admin, when you log in, you're going to see all of your partials for the entire office. They're obviously able to then go in, find that particular partial, and add in photos or disclosures, maybe review it. And then all they have to do is save it, and your listing then becomes live within the MLS. So basically, that admin's going in, they're opening up that partial. They're able to go in, add photos, and then all they have to do is hit save. As soon as they hit save on your behalf, that listing is now live in the MLS. But there's one more reason that we don't make it live immediately. So other MLSs will allow you to fill out a data sheet, hit save, and it immediately sends it out into the IDX world, right? You're seeing it on Zillow, Realtor.com, all these other IDX sites. The only problem is you've just now sent it from your document with no photos. So what happens in situations like Realtor.com and Zillow and many of these other IDX sites, when you put a listing into the MLS, within 15 minutes, that listing goes out into the world and is now displayed. However, photos are high resolution. And if you put 10 photos in, it's very expensive and slows things down for companies to go and grab those photos. They could never do it every 15 minutes. So most places like Zillow and Realtor.com, they actually will pull photos once a day. Sometimes they don't even pull them once every 48 hours. Again, because it slows things down when you're going out and getting these high resolution photos. So if you sent your listing out, essentially, and you have not added photos first, essentially you could have just sent that listing out into the world for up to 48 hours where it will not join up with the photos in that time. So that means it could be 48 hours before your listing actually shows the photos. Now, we know if you're using things like the Collaboration Center, or if you're using like the Realcom portal, or if you're using those automated systems where the buyers are getting those immediately, if a buyer gets that without a photo, they generally will just jump to the next listing. So we want to make sure that we're always adding our photos first. And that's why it saves it as a partial, gives you a chance to add those photos, and then you can go ahead and make it live. That way you never have that seller calling saying, hey, why are my photos not on my listing? Obviously, we want to make sure that that doesn't happen. And that's why we allow you to do the partial first. Partial, add the photos, now make it live. Now, when it goes out into IDX, all of your photos, your listing looks great, and all of your photos or virtual tours are already there. So hopefully that makes sense too.
Good morning, Colleen.
Good morning. It is so nice to see and hear you. How are you?
Good. I've been popping on just listening, but I didn't want to interrupt you on your flow. So, and I had an interesting morning. So I was down to 1-lane traffic on my way here. So that was interesting. And I set off the alarm in the building. So there were 2 police officers here. So I don't know what's going on, but I was able to, let them know I'm here in the office and everything's okay.
Well, I'm sorry that you had such a rough morning.
It was an interesting morning. So, yeah, but I also wanted to let everybody know I added all the upcoming classes because this is kind of just a teaser of some of your favorite features and some other stuff. So I did copy and paste all of the registration links to the future TransactionDesk Authentisign 2.0 classes coming up in November and December.
Great. Thank you. Yes, we're trying to do 1 to 2 a week, to talk about the new enhancements, talk about the new. So this is kind of a teaser of some of the things that you're going to want to know. But if you want to see the full hands-on and walk through it at a slower pace, as Taylor mentioned, we've got classes. As a matter of fact, I think I'm teaching 2 of them this week and 2 next week. So we've got classes going so that you can see it at a much slower pace and follow along too. All right. So another function that we have also added that I love and a lot of people don't know is here on the TransactionDesk side, before we get into the Authentisign side, is that you can now send your sellers disclosures ahead for your clients to fill out. So if you're like me, you go on your listing appointment, right? You slide the seller's disclosure in front of them. And all of a sudden you come back and there's like 9 crossouts. I'm just going to pull up the disclosure real quick here. And Taylor, can you see, are you able to still see my screen?
Yep. Yeah, it looks good. I see all the.
So I'm just going to pull up the seller's disclosure to kind of give you a quick visual.
We do have one question too that you kind of mentioned the difference between the forms, and there was a question from Joyce saying, on an agent level, can I import a form as a template in TransactionDesk?
Great question. Yeah, if you have a form that, let's say it is a checklist, or let's say it's maybe you're on a team and you want to disclose that team, yes, you can actually create your own form packet and you can put that in the documents section. So every time you go to use that, not only do all the listing documents or purchase side documents appear, but it will have your team form. And I'll actually show you how to do that. It's a really good question. But back to the seller's disclosure real quick. Obviously, the agents, we are never filling this out, or we're never supposed to be filling this out. This is really to be filled out by the homeowner. But what happens generally is I'll go and measure the rooms. I'll come back and there'll be a huge scratch out on the not available column because they didn't realize that was there, right? Or now they've got a bunch of, no's and it was supposed to be not available. Or worst case scenario, you've now measured the rooms sometimes twice, and you come back and they're still trying to pull out their roof information to find out how long their warranty is on their roof. You know what I'm talking about. It just takes a really long time to fill this out. So here's an idea. When you're confirming your listing appointment, send this document ahead. So what I would suggest is you simply go to File. You're going to go down to Send via email. Super easy. And by the way, I would really only do this for my seller's disclosure, maybe your lead-based paint disclosure, because everything else we're really filling out in a locked format because we don't want our sellers or buyers changing that. But this is something I'm never going to fill out. This is really something they need to fill out. So I'm going to send this to Sally Seller. I'm obviously going to put in Sally Seller's email address. You could customize the subject line, like, see you tonight at 4:00 for a listing appointment, whatever you wanted to say. But there's one little flip. Instead of sending it as a locked attachment, you're going to send it as a link, and you're going to allow them to actually fill the document out. Now, this comes from you because they have no idea who TransactionDesk is, right? They don't know Authentisign. They know you, their trusted agent. So when it comes to them, it actually comes from you. You can even put in an expiration date. So maybe you want it filled out by Saturday when your listing appointment is. And then all you're going to do is hit send. Now, when they receive this, they receive an email from you, they click on it, and they can actually fill these forms out. When they hit save, it comes back to you, the agent, and is right in your transaction desk file. So they literally are filling it out. They can print a copy for themselves as well. The fields are open. They can fill in the information. It comes back to you. And now I can review it. And I can also go in, if there's something that maybe I want more clarity on, I can even resend it to them if I need it to be a little clearer on an item. Then generally I'll print them off and take them on my listing appointment, or send them with the other docs for e-signatures. So 2 great enhancements on the listing side that I really do think makes it so much easier. Another thing we've done, and Brian was brilliant in doing this, in my opinion, he has made it easier on the buy side for you, because on the buy side, if you think about it, I'm going to jump backwards just a little bit since we're kind of doing this at a high level. On the buy side, if I've just showed Tom Lipinski's listing here on Lakeshore, on the buy side, when I click this splash icon, it is literally not only just pulling the data, but as of now, it's also pulling the property disclosures for you too. It can pull not only disclosures, but surveys. If there's a perk test that was done and the agent has added that to the associated docs, anything that's in this associated docs now will carry over into your transaction file automatically. So it used to be, if I was going to send my buyer, my buyer's agency, my purchase agreement, I would send all those out, but then I'd have to go back and I'd have to go under associated docs, right? And I'd have to download the seller's disclosure because of course it's filled out here by the homeowner. I have to download this. Tom was kind enough to put the feature sheet in here and some other things. But it was really a pain because now I have them downloaded. I have to now bring them into TransactionDesk so that clients can sign everything at once. The good news is we've resolved all of that. As long as the agent has bothered to put the associated documents on the listing, it will now carry over, and I'm just going to show it to you real quick. It will now carry those associated documents into your buy side file. So why is that so helpful? Well, when you're ready to send all of these documents out for signing, your buyer can sign not only your buyer's agency, but your purchase agreement and the filled out seller's disclosure and lead-based paint all at the same time. So I'm just going to show you. I just pulled Tom's over real quick for the sake of time here. So here's his Lakeshore. When I open up his Lakeshore property, and I go into my documents, you can see that his seller's disclosure, his feature sheet, all of that is right here for me. So when my buyer is ready to sign the purchase agreement, I also automatically, right in the document section, have all the information that the homeowner filled out so he can sign this as well. That's done automatically. You do not have to upload them like you used to. It used to be a little bit of a pain. You'd have to download them, then save them, then upload them. Now we do that for you. So everything will be right in your transaction file. It's also gotten a little easier to do the uploads, to add those new documents. So if I want to add a document, I now can grab up to 20 files at one time and bring them right into the transaction. So I'm just going to show you quickly. Let's say I wanted to, we'll pretend this is not my Thanksgiving invite. We'll pretend that this is actually a home warranty form that's been filled out. All you're going to do is simply grab that, drag and drop it onto the drop strip, and immediately that's been added in there. Few other things that they've recently done, they've added a great document slicer. So if you need to remove a page from a document, maybe you've got your buyer's agency, your purchase agreement, all of your purchase side docs, maybe you've sent everything over to your buyer. But your buyer, your exclusive buyer agency has his phone number on there, might have his email address, contact information. I obviously don't want to send that to the co-oping agent, right? I want to slice that off. So with the document slicer, you now can slice off documents from your PDF or even particular pages. So actually, I'll show you one real quick. just to kind of give you an example. I'm kind of a visual person, kind of like to see it. So I'll kind of show you what it looks like. And you can do this in the app, by the way. Download the Transaction Desk app. If you're on the fly, you're maybe at your son's baseball game, you want to simply do a quick change, or you want to mark something up. There's the markup tools, but then there's this document slicer tool that I'm talking about. You can do this on your phone as well. So all I'm going to do is click that document slicer tool. And now
I have another question that came in, okay, Colleen, too, when you get a second.
Sure. Okay. So we'll pretend that Taylor's the co-oping agent here, and I just want to send her. I don't want to send her my buyer's agency. We'll pretend this last 2 pages are the buyer's agency. I literally just want to send her the purchase agreement. We'll pretend that's the first 5 pages. So what it allows me to do is just slice off the pages that I want to send to Taylor. Now I can actually do a save as. I always like to keep my original of the offer intact. That way I can see like the progression if we have multiple counters. But I'm going to do a save as. I'm going to say that we'll call this offer for Taylor. Now she's not going to go ahead and see those additional pages. It's going to allow me to just send, instead of those 7, I've now just created a PDF of those 5 that I can email directly over to her. So it just makes it a little bit easier. Again, use that document slicer. Makes it easier, especially when you're on the road, if you need to cut one particular page or one particular document off quickly. All right, Taylor, I'm ready for that question.
So the question from Joyce was regarding the associated docs in Paragon. Can you explain the checkbox option when uploading that asks whether to make a doc emailable or public? Sorry, not in that screen to verify correct terms for this question. So I think she's just wants you to go into Paragon, because that's not where you were at, and talking about the associated docs there. That's what I gather.
Gotcha. And let me clarify too. I believe that that's set on an association level. So your association may or may not allow those docs to be public. And what that means is now in places like the Collab Center, when you are sending your client to the site. So let me show you instead of tell you. That's probably the easiest way to answer that question. It's a very good question. When you're in places like the Collab Center now, and let's pretend here for just a moment, your client is going through the listing. It now shows them, if you've allowed it to be public, it now shows them the actual seller's disclosure and lead-based paint within the Collab Center. So if you don't want it to be public, if you don't want public sites to see that information, that's really what it's asking you. But let me find one here. We'll use this one. I think this one should be a good example. So when I am working with a buyer, I always set them up in the Collab Center so that any new listing, especially in this market we're in right now, any new listing that meets their criteria immediately goes to that buyer so they don't miss anything. So when they're looking at this property and they're in here, they can actually see the disclosures now as long as you've allowed them to be public. So to answer your question is basically it's asking you, do you want them to be able to see those property disclosures? Yes or no. If you've made them public, then they will actually show up here. If you've not made them public, they will not be able to see them here. Okay, does that make sense? Hopefully that answered your question, but it's just, do you want the public to be able to see your disclosures when they're in sites like the Collab Center?
Colleen, do you want to take a quick break and give some prizes away?
I would love to do that. That'll let me switch over to Authentisign next.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
I'm going to take over the screen if that's all right with you.
That is great with me. I
think Joyce had a follow-up from what you said before we jump ahead. So if we made the docs public, will these docs show on third-party sites such as Zillow, etc.?
It depends on the third-party site on that. If not all of them are set up to show those docs, but if generally you're going to find them mostly on the Collab Center and things like that, you'll see them on HomeSnap. So they are available on HomeSnap. So yes, some third-party sites, but not all. Sorry, I wish I could give you a more definitive answer there. I love this, Taylor. This is so cool. What a great idea.
Yeah, this will be fun. So this is everybody who's on, at least a little bit ago, as long as you didn't jump off, but you have to be here to win. So we'll be giving away a couple prizes. For everybody who we're going to do a spin, we have options for your prizes, so you can choose which one you would like if you won. So the choices will be a water bottle, stainless steel water bottle, a camping mug, it's called, which is like a nice travel mug for coffee or soup. Also stainless steel to keep your liquids hot or cold. If you eat ice cream out of a mug like my husband, this is a great thing for him because it keeps the ice cream cold and he likes to eat out of a mug. There's also a t-shirt, so you can let us know what size. These t-shirts are really soft and stretchy and comfy, say MiRealSource on them, as well as there was one more thing, a mechanical pen, I believe, that we have the flashlight on. And
it's got the tools inside, which
flashlight and the little screwdrivers in this pen.
Those are really nice when you can't get a lockbox open in the cold and the dark.
So I'm going to spin.
All right. Good luck, everybody.
Oh, all right, Pat. Of course, you're going to have the more complicated last name to say. So I'm going to say Devereaux. Pat Devereaux, you are the winner. So you can let me know just in the chat which prize you would like, whether that's a water bottle, a mug, a t-shirt. I can follow up with your address where you would prefer to have that sent to you, or one of the mechanical pens. So awesome. Pat, waiting for your chat. Make sure that you're on. And then let's do one more.
I was just going to say, let's do one more.
Yeah. I probably should have taken her name out, but I didn't. So. Oh, okay. Jeremy Turpin. Yay! So you are a winner as well. So go ahead in the chat and let me know which prize that you would like. I'll be reaching out to both you and Pat to just get your preferred address. If you do want a t-shirt in that, you can let me know what size you want. We have everything from small to 3X in our storage for you guys.
Awesome. Go the water bottle. They're very cool.
They're sleek.
I had to borrow one for myself. Sorry, Taylor.
Borrow. And another thing, there was a question just directed right to us as the panelists, just asking if they can watch this somewhere else or rewatch this somewhere, or if there's other classes that they cannot attend a future Transaction Desk Authentisign classes. I put that in the chat for you guys. You can actually watch all recorded classes on our YouTube channel. There's different playlists, as well as every Mixing It Up episode that we've had. So this is episode 30. There's 29 other episodes of guests that we've had on different topics that we've covered monthly. Back when we first launched this, it was every week. So there's a lot of episodes, all unique content on there for you guys.
Awesome.
Okay.
And Jeremy said he's going to do the water bottle. Way to go. Because I got to tell you, those are really cool. They're the stainless steel ones and I like them.
Yeah. Did awesome. Pat come through? I'll give her a minute to comment. Pat, you were the winner. So let us know what, I'll give you another minute or two and then I'm going to spin it again. I'll, wait till the end for Colleen to go over the things about Authentisign that she wants to talk about. But if I don't hear from Pat, then we'll do another spin.
Awesome. All right.
Okay.
I'm going to go back to sharing my screen then. All right, so let's get into the really exciting stuff, and that's the new stuff in Authentisign. So I gave you a couple teasers in Transaction Desk, but really the new Authentisign, I think if you follow, and especially we'll teach you this in the class, if you follow the easy steps of really creating the transaction in Transaction Desk, then when you're using the new Authentisign, you'll find that The forms are pre-tagged for you. It knows where the seller and buyer should initial and sign, and it really takes a lot of time out of the tagging. So basically, the hardest part of using Authentisign is marrying what you're sending for signing to the actual transaction file. If you do that step, it should be just a couple of seconds before you can send your docs out for signatures. So let's actually walk through that real quick. We're going to go over here to the left where the pen icon is, and then as you can see, right now, there are two tabs. There is the classic Authentisign, which is what you have used up to this point. But on November 18th, this classic is going to go into a read-only version. So basically, that classic version is going to go away. You're still going to keep all of your signings. So don't worry, they will all be there. They will all be, you'll be able to access them. You'll be able to still print those docs should you need them. However, they're not going to be where they're live signings any longer. So they're basically the old Authentisign is going away. The new Authentisign 2.0 will be available from there forward. But right now, of course, you can bounce back and forth. I would suggest getting familiar with the new Authentisign. It does look different, but I think that you'll find it still has all the great functionality. It's just easier to use. And again, 60% faster. You won't get that slow moving. I used to call it the slow moving wheel of death. It would like kind of load and load and load. You'll see that you don't get that any longer. It's much, much faster. All right, so how do you do it? You're simply going to go up to Add, just like you did before. You're going to select that you want to use the new Authentisign. You're going to obviously give it a name. And again, I recommend kind of not putting a client's name in unless you're doing it after the property, because it becomes a little bit harder to find. But you could say something like, maybe we're looking for 205 purchase docs. Now, where I mentioned that you want to marry what you're sending to the transaction file to make this process really streamlined, I know it says optional, but really don't think of that as optional. Think of it as I want all the documents my clients sign to go right back in the transaction. And that's what will actually happen if you just marry it to the transaction file. So where it says optional, don't think of that as optional. Think of that as your big transaction list. Where do I want my signed docs to end up? I want them to end up right in my transaction file. So I'm going to go ahead, hit save. And basically I've started that signing process now, and everything that they sign will go right back into the file. The good news here is, just like before, it's going to have the sections, but they're already open for you. So I want to go ahead and I want to add my contacts. Who am I going to send this to? So basically, I want to add my contacts right from the transaction because I've already put that information into the forms. So by adding the transaction contacts, I can say, okay, I want to send it to Barry, my buyer here. I want to witness it because in my brokerage, we actually witness our contracts. And then maybe I even want to send it on to the co-oping agent. So if you're going to send it to all three parties, here's a little tip. You really want to make sure you're putting those parties in a signing order, because obviously you don't want to send it to the co-oping agent if your buyer hasn't signed it yet. So you're simply going to select that I want to use the signing order, and then you're going to select how do you want them to sign. Now, automatically it defaults to remote signer. And what that means is, are they getting it in an email? They're just going to sign it by clicking. Perfect. Then they're a remote signer. But what if it's an attorney and they're not really signing the documents, but you want the attorney to review them before they go on to the buyer? Well, then you would set them up in that reviewer role, which actually timestamps that they accepted or rejected the document. Even though they're not signing, it shows that that attorney did go through them and either accept or reject. And then, of course, that history is kept for you. If they accept them, now it can go on to their client and their client can sign them. Then last, there's the CC role. Now, this is not like CC on an email. I just want to stress, this is not just automatically seen by this party. What the CC role is if you wanted, after everyone has signed them, if you wanted it to go directly to a lender with your personal message, or maybe a title company with your personal message, or maybe just your office admin, you can make them a CC on your envelope. And what that means is, if everybody doesn't sign them, it doesn't go anywhere, right? I don't want to let my lender know to start everything if I don't have a deal. So if the parties that I've said are supposed to sign the documents, have actually completed them, then by using that CC role, instead of me having to touch it and turn around and send it to another party, it will automatically travel to that party with a personalized message if everyone has signed it. So again, if there's no deal, then I don't really need to let the title company know, right? So this is an idea to just not have to touch it so much and still have it go, a fully executed document, go to your title company or your lender. That's actually what the CC rule is. Once I say I want to send it to these particular parties and I hit select, I can also drag and drop them into the order that I want. So Tom is obviously the listing agent. I don't want Tom to get it before my buyer has signed it. So I want to make sure I'm sending it to my buyer, then to me, and then on to Tom as the listing agent. So I'm putting them in that logical order of real estate. Of course, if you're only working with a husband and wife on your side of the transaction, you don't have to do this process at all. You can actually turn off the signing order and it will just go to the husband and wife. They can sign it at their convenience and it comes right back to me. But in this case, I want to make sure it goes full circle. I'm sorry?
A couple questions came in regarding Authentisign, and then there was one about, or there was a couple more too. So,
okay.
When asked, can we print from Authentisign before we send it off? Yesterday, I had an attorney that wanted me to cut and paste verbiage, a signature line and text box, but it was too much. Then she wanted me to just print it and email it to her as a PDF.
Yes, you can still do that. And you can still print it. When you say it was too much, meaning maybe it was too big, I'll take you to where I think you're probably addressing that you needed to do that. It's a really good question. I think I can show that to you really, really easily. Good question. Well, since we've done the signing, the parties that are going to be signing, let's talk about how do we get those documents in there, because there's a really cool thing that's been added here too. So again, when you're bringing documents in, they're high resolution docs. They're going to be a lot clearer than they were previously. So I'm just going to click that I want to add a form or a document. Now here's this is my favorite feature. So of course I can go in and just pick the documents by going down the list that I want to send out for signatures. But what I really like about this, remember how I said that Tom's seller's disclosure was already carried over into my transaction for me? You're going to find that that seller's disclosure is there for you to choose too. So everything is very easy. It's on this list. I just pick exactly what I want them to sign. And now it's carried over. If there's something additional I want to add, maybe my home warranty brochure, something that maybe isn't in Instanet, maybe my team selling, maybe I have a brochure about how I'm working with the team, something like that. You can upload an additional document, just like I showed you before. You can go in, you can grab it, drag it onto that drag and drop strip. Immediately it's located. So really, really easy to add those outside documents too. One last thing, and I got to be honest, I could not figure out why you would use this until I had a deal recently fall apart in inspection, unfortunately. But lastly, they've added My Files. So what My Files is for is, let's say that I'm going to use Jeremy on our call since he was our big winner. Let's say Jeremy was working with a buyer. Jeremy helped the buyer buy 123 Main Street, has a home inspection, and now unfortunately the deal falls apart. But Jeremy's a great agent. So the next day he goes out, he finds them 456 West Street, an even better house. They love it. Now, Jeremy doesn't want to just change 123 Main Street to 456 West Street, because really he wants to keep that transaction of everything that took place intact. Because what if there's a legal situation, or what if he wants to go back and review it at some point? He wants to always keep his paper trail. So basically, he's now going to start a new file for 456 West Street. But his buyer's agency that was signed by his buyer is still in 123 Main Street. His EMD copy of the EMD check, still in 123 Main Street. His pre-approval letter is in 123 Main Street. He doesn't want to kill that file. All he wants to do is go into My Files. He wants to go into his transaction folders, and he basically wants to take the forms that were in that previous file and copy them over into his transaction. So that's really what the My Files are. If you have something that you still want to include in either Authentisign or TransactionDesk, you can still pull them from other files, simply makes a copy of them for you. The one thing I did find a little tricky, and I'll be totally honest, the one thing I found a little tricky in Authentisign 2.0 was the rotating of documents or the slicing of documents when you get to this point. When you're here, all you're going to do is when you're looking at your documents and forms, you're going to be able to go to the right and you're going to be able to preview that document or form, like as you see here. But I found before you had this big button that said rotate the document. So when I was here, I was like, how do I do that? Well, actually right down here at the bottom, although it looks like a page number, and I did find this a little bit tricky, so I just want to point this out. Although it looks like a page number really small down here, this is actually options. So if you let's say got an offer from another agent, and it happens all the time. It's my pet peeve because I have OCD and I like my forms to be straight and in line. If you need to rotate that document for any reason, you're just going to go to those little, it looks like a page number, but it's actually your options, and you can actually rotate the page from there. You could remove a particular page from there as well. And so although it's kind of small and minimized down here, each one of the pages when you're previewing them have those options right down at the bottom. Okay, so hopefully that helps there too. Lastly, on the tools side, and you can also drag and drop them into the order that you want. If you've gotten to here and you want your agency to be first, you again can go into that doc section, grab those little dots, and you can of course drag and drop them in the order that you wish. The tools, as I mentioned, have gotten easier. So all you're going to do is pick the signer's name, drag and drop just as you did before. But there is one thing kind of made me crazy when I first started playing with this. They actually, under initials and signatures, they have set up layouts. And so let me explain what that means. So when I would go in and I would grab the initial, next to the initial, I find this kind of crazy, it would have additional features that would automatically come with the initial. So as you can see, I did the initial here, and the date and the timestamp came over with it. Now, every one of my contracts, by the initials, there is not a date area. By the signature, there generally is, but by the initials, not so much. So by clicking on the layout, you can adjust exactly what you want to come with that layout. So I can say, okay, I want just the required name or just the required initial to be there. I don't want all the other things. Now, the good news is once you figure out exactly what you want, you can actually save that as your default. So every time you go to use this with a buyer, it will know, now I don't want the date next to it. I just want the initial for the buyer. So it does give you more flexibility in setting up the role, so it always comes out exactly as you want it to. And if I scroll down, I know we're running a little low on time, so I'll make this really fast. Some of the new features too, if you do the initial pages, as you can see on my purchase agreement, at the bottom, my buyer, and let's say you have a husband and wife, every time I would have to drag this on for the husband, then go to the wife, drag it on for her. But every single page of my 7-page PA has a spot for them to initial. So that's a lot of tagging, and I really don't want to do that. So you could just go to the initials pages box. You can say, okay, my buyer is going to be initialing at the bottom right of every single page of my purchase agreement. So just my buyer, just my purchase agreement. And by the way, you can even specify if it's going to be every page of your purchase agreement, or some PAs I've seen, they only initial every other page. So you can even make it work that way. So it does give you a little bit more flexibility. You don't have to place the initials individually for each party, which I like. So now if I go back, you can see that it has an initial box on every single page of my PA for that buyer to sign. And if you have OCD like I do, it's a lot easier to just drag them in the box than to pre-tag every form. Of course, just like before, you can save these layouts so that they can automatically be applied. Makes it much easier there too. Another thing that they've added is the radio buttons. If you were like me, you would have them check off if they were going to get a home warranty or not get the home warranty. Well, now if you allow them to check, let's say you make it optional, they could check both. And now you've got a contract that says, yes, they're going to have a home warranty. No, they're not going to have a home warranty. So they've made things like the radio buttons easy to use, but they can only choose one. So, and you, by the way, you can have multiple radio buttons. I'm just going to grab two here for this example. But if they choose yes, it will gray out no, and vice versa. So as you can see, they've added some great tools. They've made it easier to use. Email addresses can be applied very quickly. I think the overall look, as you can see, is much easier to use. Do take some time and go in before November 18th, because obviously that's when the old version will be going away. Go in, practice, maybe send yourself a contract to sign, just so you can see how easy it is to use, so you're not feeling the pressure come November 18th. All right, Taylor, I know you said we had a couple questions.
Now, this was the last questions.
Sure.
And then if, people who ask the questions, you're welcome to stay on. And then if there's, it is 11, but sometimes we run over depending on the question. So we did have a lot of questions kind of come in later.
Okay.
First one was, do you recommend it these docs be in public?
I do. I think, having them available for them to see, I don't think is a bad thing. I'm going to go over them, obviously with my clients. It does allow them to do more legwork on their own. So for me, for my listings, I do want them to be public, because if there was a flood in the basement, or if they can see that right when they're reviewing the listing itself. So I don't mind that. I personally kind of like it. I know many associations, when you send out an MLS ticket, they actually send with that ticket, they actually send the disclosures. So I think our industry is kind of going that way. So I don't think it's a bad thing. I recommend it.
Okay. Next question is there an app for putting MiRealSource and TransactionDesk and Authentisign, I'm assuming, on your phone? I always use my laptop, but being able to use my phone would also be nice.
Yes, there is a TransactionDesk app. I use it quite often. I love that you can expand it. I probably wouldn't recommend doing a whole transaction on it, but if you wanted to quickly write an addendum and you're, at your son's baseball game, it's great for that. Or if you want to mark up an offer, a counter offer, it works very nicely for that, because it actually integrates with your email on your phone. So when I'm in my email and I click the share button, TransactionDesk actually pops up and it will send it into TransactionDesk. So that attachment goes right into TransactionDesk for simple markups. So if you're just countering a price, or you're, countering, maybe you're not leaving the washer or dryer, it's a fantastic app. Just go to the App Store and you'll find TransactionDesk. A lot of people look for Instanet. It's not under Instanet, it's under TransactionDesk, but you can pull it up very quickly.
Yep. And then Mark asked, Colleen, when you marry it to a file, do you still have the original document in the file, as well as the original document in the file, as well as the original docs?
You do. Very good question. Yes. When you go back into your TransactionDesk file, you have obviously your original that you pull in, but that signed document. So if you've made changes to that document, that signed document is back in your original file. And I really do like that, because a lot of times I just had a client who called me about listing their home, and I sold it to them 2 years ago. I can go back into the original file and see all of their signed documents. I just pull up my closed files. It's right there. And so, yes, you have the modified one and the original within TransactionDesk.
And this might go back to the previous question about it being public, but Patricia asked what if you didn't want to send all the documents to the lender?
Great question. So if you didn't, I think she might be talking about the document slicer. If you're talking about the document slicer, remember, you can slice off documents that you don't want to go to a particular party. Now, if you're talking about the CC role, which you may be, with either the app or in TransactionDesk or in Authentisign, you have that document slicer tool. So you can slice them off, before sending them to a lender, because that does happen occasionally when you might not want something to go directly to the lender. So you still can use that tool. If you are CCing them, if you're talking about automatically not having to touch it, it will automatically send whatever everyone has signed. So if there's something you don't want to go to the lender, what I would recommend is when you get that that final copy back, just click on the document slicer, slice it up, and then send it to the lender. Very good question.
Following, she was talking about the CC role. It looks like, but there was a few questions in between.
Sure.
So
hopefully that helped.
What's the next one? Yep. Can the CC be set up to send specific documents from a signing event, or all of the documents sent?
Yeah, all of the documents are sent if you automatically CC, but remember, when you get that final copy back, and that's a good point. When you get the final copy back, you do get it in two different formats. You get one PDF that has everything, but then it also will actually spell out each individual document in case you just wanted to send one document over. So you actually get it in the email that comes when you click on the link. It will have the PDF with everything, and then it will have each document separated. So if you just want to quickly send one document over to the lender, it's very, very simple to do because of that process.
And then Joyce asks, signing order is one feature that sets Authentisign apart and from other signing software. And I love this feature. So not really a question, but just good to hear.
And Joyce, there's something really cool. I didn't go over it today, but there's something, because it sounds like you're like me and we want to really make it easy. And you're right, that signing does. There's even something called now the private participant role, which is, you're not going to use it all the time because most transactions have a counter involved at some point. But the really cool thing about it is that let's say I call you, Joyce, and I say, we're going to offer full price. We're meeting all your terms. And you go, okay, great. You know, we got a deal. I'm going to have my client sign it today. We've already had a meeting of the minds, right? So we know that there is not going to be a counter in this scenario. I can actually send it to Joyce in what they call the private participant role. If Joyce reviews it and she's happy with what she sees on that contract, there's a place for Joyce to add her seller's names, and it can automatically then travel to the seller. It even knows where the seller's supposed to sign the contracts. And with her permission and putting the email address and her seller's names, it can actually complete the process full circle. I don't go over it too much because most of the time we do have a counter. There's something that we'll have to change. But if you do have a meeting of the minds, that's a great way to keep the other agent from having to start an Authentisign all over again. So they get it. Now they got to bring it into Authentisign. Now they got to send it out to their clients. And they got to set up the signatures. So there is some really advanced tools in this as well. Sorry, Taylor.
And then another question is, can signing expiration date be modified after the email has been sent in the new Authentisign?
That is a good question. You know what? I'm going to have to check. I don't have the answer to that. I know the names can be changed. The email addresses can be changed while in process. They are also adding CC in process. That'll be coming in December 15th, I think it was. So they're still even adding more functionality. That the expiration date, I'm going to have to check. I have not played with that. But Taylor, if you make a little note next to that person's name, I will definitely let you know afterward.
Okay.
I want to test it.
And then it doesn't look like Pat was on, so we can do another spin for a giveaway because you have to be on. But I just want to take the question from Joyce down about the expiration date.
I will jot it down.
What, Carrie? Yep.
Good questions. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so let's do another spin to win.
And as Taylor mentioned, we've got lots. I know I went over it kind of at hyper speed today just to kind of show you the highlights. But we have full classes running a couple times a week. So we'll go through it at a slow pace. You'll actually send it to yourself. So you'll see the signing as the buyer receives it as well, or seller. So, all right. Good luck, everybody.
All right. So in the chat, let us know what you want if it is lands on your name. Mark Hernandez. I don't remember seeing his name recently going through. So let's see.
I know he was on earlier.
Yeah.
Oh, I see him down at the bottom. I think he's here.
He is. Okay. He says I'm here. All right, Mark. What item did you want as your giveaway? Did you want the water bottle? Did you want the camping mug, the t-shirt, or the mechanical pen?
I'm gonna have to start keeping some of the prizes here so we can show them when we're so they can kind of see it.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Ren. Should go and grab them. And then I will also be reaching out to everybody who won. Judy says, great job, Colleen. She learned a lot.
Oh, thank you.
Mark also wants the water bottle.
Awesome.
Sounds good, Mark. We will be getting that out to you, and I'll get your preferred mailing address.
Well, thank you, everybody. I hope to see you at the upcoming Authentisign classes. Stay well, stay safe, and let us know if you need anything.